time? And have them all read together. But a very, very powerful strategy for secondary and post-secondary, especially for students who don't consider themselves to be good readers, is for the teacher to read aloud to the student in a very dramatic voice. You know? Now, we do this a lot at the elementary school level. You do read aloud all the time. You have children. Who has little children? Anybody? Okay. You read to your babies sometime at night when they're little? You read to them, yes? But at a certain age, we stop doing this, but the Scholarship for Literacy has demonstrated this is very powerful, especially if your students don't consider themselves to be good readers, right? Why? First of all, you're modeling phrasing, intonation, pronunciation, right? But second, you're modeling something even more important, and that is love for reading. We want to create a culture of reading in our classrooms and communities, and it's important that they see an adult role model reading for them. Okay? So even though it might seem a little bit elementary, a little bit silly, it's very powerful for the teacher to read aloud to the students, right? Now, this takes some practice. Some people are better at reading aloud than others. I particularly don't like to read aloud, you know, because I always read silently my whole life, you see? So I'm not used to reading aloud. But if you're good at reading aloud, or even if you're still struggling with it, I encourage you, when you reach a story, it's a prose text, it's a short story. When you reach a story like this, or a poem like The Solitary Reaper, the teacher should read it aloud. Then you can have students read. And you should read it aloud. Let's say you're working on that text for a week. Read it aloud every day. Another thing that you might do that's very powerful is you pick a novel. Pick a short novel. Not too difficult, one that the students are familiar with. Maybe Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, something that's popular, right? And every week, the end of the week, the last 20 minutes, you can read the novel aloud to the students until the end of the year you finish the book. You see what I mean? So you'd have a shared reading with them. Okay? Now, again, this is something we associate with elementary school, but it's very good to do for learners of English as a second language. Do your students come from a culture of reading? Do they have books in their homes? Do they read?
Not all the time.
Do their parents read to them?
No.
This is why you should read to them, even if they're adults. Because it's important they see a man or a woman that they admire reading, right? Because it's just like your little daughter or son. Even if they can't read, they'll hold the book upside down and say, look, I'm reading, right? Same idea. They'll copy you, okay? So let's try that. Who likes to read? Yes, ma'am. You want to read a lot? And you only have a few hours a week with your students. The best thing you can do for their lives is to get them excited about reading, because then they'll continue learning through their whole life. Who read a book this month for pleasure? What book did you read?
Taylor's Needle.
What's it about?
Novel, comedy manners, Canada manners, written in non-Dutch.
Nice. Was it good? You read it for fun?
I read it for fun and I have finished it today.
Oh, Taylor's Needle. Who else read a book this month? Yes?
English Harvest.
What's it about?
It's about who goes to a district for training for 1 year, but he doesn't like the job.
Okay.
He plans to leave the job, and he leaves the job and comes home, and but his parents, his father and uncle, convinces him and sends him back to the place.
Nice. So you liked it?
Arupa Kalita, Assamese novelist. It's about the plight of women in Assam, one of the northeast state.
Yeah.
She speaks about the atrocities of army and atrocities of the militants, and she speaks about subhuman life of women in that area.
So it's not fiction.
So it's a fiction.
It's
a
fiction. Okay.
Yeah, she represented the life presented there in the fictitious characters.
Okay, I like that. So a lot of social issues, right? Okay, and that's what the thing you can do is read with them. You read aloud. Even when they're in middle school, high school, you have family reading time. And just pick a book and read it every day. It will help them a lot. Yeah. There's nothing that can compare to this sustained reading. Yes? Yes, sir.
There is a website known as bookssshouldbefree.com.
Yeah.
The old novels are read in the MP3 format,
Oh, nice.
so that we can emulate them.
Yeah.
All Charles Dickens novels and all of them, most of them, post corporate has exhausted.
Sure.
They post it on the net. We can download it freely.
Okay.
We can get it down onto the mobile
Your
phones also. We
tablet
can
one.
listen to it immediately.
Oh, so
While
it's a
walking
book
and
on
jogging.
tape. A book on tape, recorded book.
Yes.
That's really fun too, right?
We can emulate the pronunciation and all.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, so ready? So what are we gonna do? Just enjoy it. So everybody get comfortable. Alright, go ahead.
In a city, never mind what it was called, there lived a small girl of about 5. The little girl had a mother and no one else. They lived together, the two of them, not well, not badly, but a life of some hardship. The mother was a charmer, the income was meager, every kopeck had to be saved, but the girl was fed, dressed and had shoes on her feet. And the mother brought a lot of different goodies from the hospital, sometimes candy, sometimes apples. The patients often gave her treats, especially when they were being discharged. They were too happy to bother about carrying things back, and so gave them away to the little girl's mother. They even gave away oranges, but patients who had oranges to give away were few and far between. Perhaps they went to other hospitals, or perhaps they were discharged less frequently. Anyhow, this has nothing to do with oranges. We'll still live, the mother joked. We'll still live, the girls agreed. But frankly speaking, the girl badly needed a wonderful blue ball which she and her mother had seen in a toy shop. She felt she simply must acquire it for a truly happy life. If you remember what it was like when you were 5, you will understand what happened when the blue ball finally turned up in the girl's hands. When the ball bounced, the little girl bounced, and even the mother gave a little bounce. Because happiness makes everyone bounce a bit. But the happiness was short-lived. One day, when the little girl was playing in the courtyard, the ball bounced so fast and so high that it flew into the window of the neighbors, the Malachos. And they had a vase with flowers on the windowsill. The ball went straight into the case and threw it down. The vase shattered into pieces. The vase was awfully expensive and made of crystal. The old lady stormed out into the courtyard, put her hands on her hips and announced that they had been robbed. She complained so long and so loud that other neighbors began to collect, and the little girl hid from fright in a shed. Only when the old man came out and did the old lady shut up. Soon after that, the little girl's mother returned from work. People told her everything, and she sighed and began to cry. The little girl saw her weeping mother through a slit in the door, ran to her, hugged her, and also crying, began to say how sorry she was. "My foolish one," was all the mother said before she took her daughter's hand. So they went hand in hand to the Malachos. The old lady gave her such a look that the little girl cringed. "There they are," said the old lady rudely and reached out to pull the little girl's thing. But she caught the old man's stern glance and drew her hands away, growing quiet. "We'll pay for it," said the little girl's mother, biting her lip. "Please don't worry, we'll definitely pay." "We'll play," the daughter said. "Don't I know you'll play?" the old jacked. "Just look at you." On the floor next to the window, under the dully shining splinters of crystal, lay the crumpled flowers in a sparkling pool. The old lady had purposefully not cleaned it up. "Are they dead?" asked the girl. The old man gave a start. "Look, who can pay?" he suddenly shouted and beat his fist angrily on the table. "What windfall do you hope for to pay from? I'm asking you, speak up." "Why, but why not?" The little girl's mother grew confused. She tried to say something more, but old Malachu waved her aside and yelled, "Enough, get going." Thus ended the visit of the offenders. No one naturally remembered the ball in all the hullabaloo, except of course the little girl. A half hour later, the old lady Malachua herself appeared at the doorstep of the culprits. Awkwardly, with both hands as if it were a watermelon, she held the ill-fated ball against her stomach. "Is she asleep?" she asked softly, nodding towards the bed where the little girl curled up like a bundle. "Who knows?" sighed the mother. "Maybe she is." She cried her heart out. The old lady angrily held out the ball. "Here, and I don't want your money." "Don't." She pressed her lips, looking hurt. The girl's mother began to fuss around, quickly found 2 huge luscious oranges and forcibly thrust an orange into each of Malachua's hands. Malachua was stunned and taken aback. Out of confusion and embarrassment, she began to smell the oranges one by one. But she suddenly stopped and, not saying a word, walked up to the sleeping girl. She stood there, took a deep breath, and carefully put the oranges right next to the girl's pillow.
Oh, it's nice. Oh, you erupted, yeah? Okay, so now so that's how it would begin. Do the read aloud. Now, another thing you can do is called the think aloud, which is very similar, but what the teacher's going to do is while she's reading, she's going to stop and talk to herself and ask herself questions. Like, I wonder what's going to happen next. Oh, and start making connections. So you can do a think aloud as well. Now, maybe in advance of the read aloud, we do a gallery walk. And, you have a big... So one thing, let's decide together, what would the gallery walk look like? What would we put on the posters for the gallery walk? Well, let's take a quote from the story.
Oranges.
Okay, so you might have some oranges. So maybe you'd have some real oranges or a basket of fruit, right? That could be the actual reality.
Balls.
Blue ball. Okay, so maybe a ball, a blue ball. So you could have a lot of realia here. Maybe a picture of children playing. Children playing games.
Mother and child.
Some sort of image of maybe a poor mother, right, and child. Well, she's not exactly poor, but a struggling. So something that shows, but not a family, it's just a mother and child. What other things? Is there a... Okay, a hospital. Okay. Dates. Maybe an apartment building.
Picture of a couple, elderly couple.
Maybe if you can find a picture of children playing in front of an apartment. Okay, what about if we wanted to lift some words out of the story or a phrase? Is there a quotation you like in that story? Was there a phrase like oranges or?
No.
Is there a particular phrase you like from that story?
Happiness gives everybody a bounce.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great quote. So happiness
Brings everybody.
gives everybody okay, even happiness might be a word, right? Happiness might be, or childhood.
Love comes all.
Say again.
Love overcomes all.
Or how about innocence? Childhood innocence. How about accidents? You know, so you take these words or realia or images, you know, depending on your resources, it depends on your resources. If you don't have access to photos, maybe you can find some in a newspaper. If you can't, then just use words and phrases and some realia. So that's something we could do to start with. Again, what are the 2 stages of the gallery walk? First, the write and switch. And then what does the teacher do? Ask questions, right? Who wrote this? What were you thinking? Give me an example. Who else has an opinion? All right, so you go through the gallery walk. All right, so you've done that. You might also start with a free writing. Another way of warming them up would be a free writing. So let's do a free writing for 2 minutes. Let's write childhood. So these are still the preliminary. You might do these before you read the story for the first time. Let's do childhood innocence. Let's do 2 minutes. You have a piece of paper? Everybody's ready? This is childhood innocence. Plus, there's no talking. It's just short 2 minutes. Are you ready? Okay. Childhood innocence. This one. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, that's 1 minute. Okay, and
Now church guys and now all of this other church guys. Okay,
Innocence is reflected in the child.
you live here in Haiti?
Not knowing what is good and what is bad.
And remember, they share it, but the teacher doesn't collect it. I might say, okay, today I want to see Jalil's free writing. And I'm going to check Rosalind's free writing. And I go and check, okay, you did it, check, good. You did it, check. And then the next day, okay, let me see Spencer's and Nancy's. I say, check, check. And then at the end of the semester, you know, the end of the month, I say, okay, Sarma's, give me one free writing that you like. And another student, and I give them actually some feedback. Maybe not even again, it's just like the reading aloud thing. You get better at these things by doing it every day. Okay? Now we're still in the preliminary warm-up phase. Maybe we haven't even read the story yet. So another thing we can do is the little bit of enactment. Okay, so let's stand up. Everybody stand up. Spread out. Okay, so I want you to, okay, so think back to you're 5 years old, right? 5 years old, and you're in, okay, now, show me your favorite toy. What's your favorite toy? Your toy? What's your toy? You have a toy? Okay, you have your toy? All right, now I want you, now we're gonna, everybody is gonna start to play with this toy. Let's see you do it. Come on. Let's see you do it.
So what is the price?
These were swimming with the Hold the doll, baby. What toy you have? One. Okay. All right, now I want you to take your toy and exchange with your friend.
I pulled it by its neck.
All right, exchange your toy with your friend. Okay, here, this is a bear. This is a bear. I'll show you. Okay.
Take my leg
It's a
carefully.
real bear?
It's not totally its neck.
Yes, what toy do you have?
Professor Spencer,
Yes.
I was a rural child. I was a rural child. My most favorite toy was a bullock cart, and you can come and now sit in my bullock cart.
Yeah. Slingshot, you have one of these slingshots? Yes.
Mine is yo-yo.
Yo-yo, okay, you have frisbee, yeah, something like that. Okay, so we can sit down, and the same idea. Now, you know, even with you do the gallery walk, the free writing, a little enactment, but you know, the students will be shy, a little bit shy, so you want to encourage them. Another thing you might do is actually bring in some toys from your children and actually just place them and have the students look at them. All right, so then let's say you've done the read aloud. Maybe you've done some vocabulary work, and again, remember, in your handouts you have some interesting vocabulary exercises where they create some dialogue, and you study some of the vocabulary, bless you, and you've done some work with the text. So now let's do a couple of the discussion activities. All right, so the first we did gallery walk. Let's do a rating activity. Okay? Remember, one, strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. So to me, one of the themes that I heard here is the theme of neighbors. Part of the story is about neighbors, right? So let's write, and maybe I'm going to use this theme for the whole week. So what are some statements? Remember, these have to be a little bit ambiguous. So here's from Robert Frost: good fences, right? Make good neighbors. Okay, what's another statement we could use?
All neighbors are friendly and helpful.
All neighbors are friendly and helpful.
All neighbors are enemies.
Okay. Okay, don't trust your neighbors. That would be very controversial. Never trust.
All neighbors are enemies.
Okay, how about this? Never trust a neighbor.
Yeah.
All neighbors are enemies. Yes.
Some neighbors are nasty.
Okay, well that's not controversial, right? Because it's true, right? Some neighbors are. But we want to make it a little controversial. What's another statement? Let's think of some more.
Love your neighbor as thyself.
Okay, love your neighbor as yourself.
It's positive.
Thyself. And even, you know, you can Google quotes about neighbors if you want. And you can get some famous quotes about neighbors. All right, so let's try this activity. Remember, we have this. You can do it in, let's do it this way, because this was the funnest way, right? I think this was the best. So we have some tape. Okay, let's just use some tape. Do we still have? And on the opposite. Okay. Put the other two on each side. And 3 is going to go in the middle. Put it on this chair. All right, before we individually look at the 5, look at the fences make good neighbors.
No.
Mending was.
Robert Frost.
Yeah, that's Okay, so good fences make good neighbors. Okay, individually, think what you like. We can depend on our neighbors. Never trust a neighbor. All neighbors are enemies. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay. Compare your ideas with your classmates. Disagree, agree, or are you neutral? So talk about the 5 statements first, see what you think, and then we're going to have the activity all together. All right. What do you think? Good fences make good neighbors.
Values sometimes maintain friendships.
Individually.
Come on.
Relationship is conditional.
First one is agree, sir.
That you are not maintain offenses to only private space, but that should not be conditional before moving.
Yeah, how do you get to know that? What's that? Yeah. What's a good fence? You make a fence with your not strong in my mind. Because number 2, they're always home. And they're very up with the whole thing. But because of her preference, now, she loved that as but it's okay. Sounds good. Good? Okay. It's a good topic. Controversial. Somewhat. Yeah, so okay, so look, I think this is a great topic because whether your students live in the city or in a rural area, they have neighbors, right? Which for your group was the most controversial? Yeah, which one was the most controversial? All neighbors are. Did anybody agree with that? No? You disagree. Okay, let's do this together now. Let's pick one. Number 2. Okay, let's do the first. Yeah, number 2. We can depend on neighbors. Okay, find your place. Find your place. Okay, let's hear your point of view. Why do you say no?
Yeah, we should. So dependence is different from taking help. We can take help from neighbors, but we shouldn't depend on somebody else completely. So sometimes in our life, whenever we are completely ill, sometimes we have to depend on them for one day or for sometimes. So that is not in our hands sometimes. But whenever we are conscious, whenever fully equipped, so we shouldn't depend on others. But when we are completely weak, sometimes we can't do anything else. We have to depend on them for one day or like so. That's why I have taken disagree. Not completely strong.
That's a good. I like that. I mean, I almost want to move to 3 now, right? Yeah. No, I like that. What do you think?
Yeah, that is true, but it's not universal. It cannot be applied to all the situations.
Give an example.
Like what I feel is that should be mutual on both the sides. Then I can agree to that we can depend on neighbors, but only to some extent.
What extent?
Like when I'm late from my office, my kids can stay there for some time. I can take care of their kids for some time, but not into the totally private affairs or anything like that. I can share some things with them. They can do the same thing sometimes.
If you need a ride.
No.
Oh no.
No.
Really? What about you? You disagree?
I disagree because, sir, we can't totally depend on our neighbors.
Why not?
For example, now I am a working woman, so I have small kids. So I can't depend on my neighbors, and I can't go and tell them just look after my children daily, and I can just leisurely go to my job. I can't depend on my neighbors because I have to find out for some alternative. Either my mother or my mother-in-law, I can depend on them, but I can't depend on my
For an
neighbors.
emergency, maybe.
For emergency, that is rare cases, very rare cases.
Yeah.
Just for some time, I can depend, but totally, daily, I can't depend on my neighbors.
Okay, good. All right, what about now? Yeah.
Only they are said to be neighbors in the society, unless they are not said to be neighbors. Neighbors itself is a connotation to have mutual respect.
So I like how he's getting specific about what we wrote, and this is why it's nice to have these things written down, because they start to analyze. The students start to analyze the modality. We can. We don't have to.
Yeah.
We can.
We can.
Right?
Sir,
Okay.
moreover,
Yes.
neighbors are different from cities to villages, sir. In cities, nobody knows who your neighbor is.
Is that true? Is it
And
like?
the villages,
It is universal. In some points, it's
And
universal, sir.
Spencer, once we are civilized, unless you lend your hand to your neighbor, we can't get mutual respect. We have to start from our side.
Because man is a social
Okay, once, twice, okay, after a few times, even other man, that neighbor could even change.
It's one more thing.
Become,
one
okay,
more thing,
help his hand. So that we have to be in a circle of gregariousness or camaraderie.
So Srikanth,
One more thing.
It's not
here
like-
is
also mutual.
we daily
Not from the personal experience, in a broader sense, in a civilized society.
Srikanth, let me tell you. We daily fight with Pakistan. We import power from Pakistan. We give wheat and rice to Pakistan. This is what is about.
So at a national level.
Neighbor doesn't mean neighbor men only.
So
Maybe.
reciprocity. Okay, what about the ladies? Let's have a woman's opinion, a woman's perspective. You agree?
Life is the name of interdependence. So, like, love begets love. We got to trust our neighbors, so trust begets trust.
We cannot survive in isolated environments. Sometimes it's good to depend, and it's a give and share relationship between the people. I'll just quote the same example like Madam about children. So, as in a working woman, and many times when children come back early home, they won't have the keys. It's not proper to give them keys and send them to school. So I know that I can depend on my neighbors that they will hand over the keys to my children and then allow them inside the house. That is enough for me. That kind of protection is enough for me. So I need to have neighbors on whom I can rely in situations.
Yeah, do you give your neighbors the key to go and tell the neighbor, okay, I'm leaving for India for 3 weeks, here's the key, here's my email, you know, if my wife needs something, she's gonna come to you.
Whoever is here is a good neighbor, sir.
Hmm?
This is a controversial statement. Whoever is here is a good neighbor. We are good neighbors.
Yeah, well, that's the question. What does it mean to be a good neighbor, right? That's the question.
As I want to be a good neighbor.
Now, here's the question too. Does your spouse have a different perspective on neighbors? And how doesn't trust them? Doesn't trust anybody. So it's a tension because I'm always talking to the neighbor. Shit, but she grew up in this topic. But everybody has an opinion because we all have neighbors. And so we can develop this controversy, do you see? And it's a good, and do you see the relationship to the story? The orange, it's about neighbors, right? So do you think, I mean, thinking ahead, is the old woman a good neighbor?
A difficult neighbor.
very
Typical neighbor.
typical,
Typical.
not reliable, not a
But
dependable
later
one.
she regretted.
But at the end of the story, we have an idea that she might be a good
Realizes,
neighbor. Because she apologizes in a way.
That's a forgiveness.
Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, we can sit down. Then let's see how we're gonna do this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you wanted to, you could also do the rating activity. So you'd have a series of statements, of vignettes, and then now in groups, right? Define a good neighbor with at least 2 key characteristics. Okay, that you use as a rule. So you have these examples, and then they have to rank who's the best neighbor. So just take from your life examples of your neighbors that you. Okay, so for example, Spencer is a good neighbor. He has lots of parties, right? And invites his neighbors to share the festivities. Okay. So that's one idea of a good neighbor. What's another good neighbor? So you gave an example, right? My neighbor, Rachel, keeps an extra key when I'm running late. She lets the children, alright, bless you, the children in. Okay? What's another example of a good neighbor? So you're just gonna do this from your experience, and then define a good neighbor. So let's pretend Betty is a good neighbor. She never asks questions or asks for favors. She maintains our privacy. That's a good neighbor, right? So there are many, in other words, there are many kinds of good neighbors. Yeah. And bad neighbors too, right? So, I mean, we've had bad neighbors too, for sure. Okay, so in your groups, let's say you did this definition of a good neighbor, and then give me one example of what that would be. So together, I want you to negotiate what's the definition of a good neighbor, and then give one example.
Bad neighbor. Very bad neighbor. Concerned neighbor.
Being in their limits.
And give an example. The yard is dirty. No, I don't want to. Thank you. All right, ready? So let's hear the definitions, even if it's a working definition. Let's see. And remember, you want to try to give an example. That's very powerful. All right, let's start in the back. What's your definition of a good neighbor?
Neighbors should be trusted. And the other one is, they must be human and empathetic.
They must be?
Humane and empathetic.
Okay. Humane and empathetic. Give an example.
Yeah.
You have an example? Okay.
Sometimes
Go ahead.
our neighbors understand us in their perspective, from their point of view. But whereas they have to understand our problems or our conditions, they have to understand us from our point of view or from our perspective. That should be empathy. That means they have to place themselves in our position.
For sure. I agree. Yeah. Yes.
These two qualities are missing in this lady, humanity and empathy. As such, they create a lot of gulamalu.
A lot of
chaos, lot of trouble for the child and the family. As these two qualities are missing, these characteristics are
in the story. Yeah.
Story.
She was slow to, I mean, construction. They're made of wood. And one family had an infant. So she's crying all night. The neighbors called the police because they couldn't take the noise. It's a lack of empathy, really. Because, I mean, what are you going to do to the baby? You can't stop the baby from crying. It's a newborn, you know? It's a newborn. There's nothing anybody can do. But they called the police, and they went to court for it. This happened about 10 years ago. I remember it in the newspaper.
So stating that is the child was disturbing them.
Which was probably true, but you know, if you don't have empathy, there's not, what are you going to do?
We feel I would
Go to a hotel or something, you know? There's something that, okay, I like that empathy, patience. What about this group in the back? What's your
A good
definition?
neighbor is someone who is tolerant, helpful, and supportive.
One more time?
A good neighbor is someone who is tolerant,
Tolerant,
helpful,
helpful,
and supportive.
supportive. Yes, tolerant, that's very important. You agree? What do you think? You like that definition? Okay, what about this group up here?
Yeah, goodness reciprocates our goodness and never hesitate to give and take help. Care and share the burden of happiness with the neighbor is a good neighbor.
That's right. What about this group?
Some more time?
No, very good. Go ahead.
The good neighbor is the one who cares, shares, and treats his neighbors as a member of his family or at least his extended family, as his extended family. One night when my husband was out of station, my mother-in-law suffered a heart stroke and I was frozen. I went to the apartment watchman and I informed him, and he said my neighbor has a car, so we can tell him. And the neighbor took my mother-in-law to the hospital.
That's a good neighbor, huh? That's a great neighbor. Very nice. That's a great neighbor.
One who is understanding, helpful, accommodative, and kind.
You have an example?
Yeah. When my child was sick once, we didn't have a car at that time. Then the neighbors volunteered to take him in a car and
Yeah,
attend to
that's
his-
really helpful. Yeah. And in the back, okay, so that's everybody, right? I think it's good to give the example, warm up. Or it could be while you're addressing the grammar and all of this stuff for the story for the unit, you can keep going back and doing these activities. So we can now have discussions. Okay, let's say in between we've read the story many times, we've done all the exercises in the book. Now let's have a discussion circle. So remember, the first stage in the discussion circle is we have to formulate the question, right? So let's change it a little bit. Let's have I'm going to give the topic, then you're going to give the questions. So let's do bad neighbor. That's the topic, bad neighbors. Okay? Now I want each group to come up with a question. So the topic, bad neighbors.
Always borrows, never gives.
Bad neighbors. So we know what a good neighbor is, but I think we know even better what a bad neighbor is, right? So let's question.
Does the neighbor all the time borrow from you?
Why do bad neighbors
Bad neighbors go elsewhere.
go astray? Why do they go astray?
No, different area, different zone.
Ah.
For them to see.
Okay, let's develop the question. Let's develop. All right, go ahead now. But opening up, the question should be a little bit open. Okay, decide together on the question. Share your question. Let's make it more open because that becomes yes or no. So, why are neighbors sometimes jealous? I think that would be more open. Right? So when you write the question, you don't want it to be yes or no. Make it open. Why? Describe. What's your question?
Does all the time come for borrow?
What's your question?
Does your neighbor?
So what's the original question? Okay. How about I like that. Can your neighbor be your best friend? And like, do neighbors change? Can neighbors change? Can a bad neighbor become a good neighbor?
How can a bad neighbor?
Yeah, and I mean, that's very related to the story, right? Okay. How can a bad neighbor
Influence your peace of mind.
your peace
Rather, influence
of
your
mind?
peace, your
Okay. 2. Next group, yeah.
Why do your neighbors react in a violent manner?
Okay, let's say sometimes react in a violent
Sometimes.
manner. Okay.
What qualities a person make him or her a bad neighbor?
Good. What qualities in a person a bad neighbor?
Can tolerate a bad neighbor.
Why do neighbors?
Why
Why do neighbors consider social status as very important?
Because they're bad neighbors.
Okay, what about the ladies in the front? The 2 ladies?
What should I do to change my neighbor? No.
And last group?
Yeah. One more question.
Same idea from
Do you think the people who never ever talk to or bother about what is happening around in the neighborhood called bad neighbors?
Birds be a bad neighbor.
You know, that's really interesting because I live in a very small town, right? And it's so everyone on that street. I would never recognize, I don't know, I mean, it's houses, right? I don't know them. I know my next door neighbor, the ones across, like the 5 houses. Otherwise, I don't know who they are. You know, that's interesting. Because it's just right next to me that I care, or behind me, you know. So we have a lot of great questions here, and now we're going to vote. Okay? So show me on your hand, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Okay, how can that, now you don't have to take a few seconds to look. Can you see them? How can a bad neighbor influence your peace of mind? Why do neighbors sometimes react in a violent manner? What qualities in a person make him or her a bad neighbor? To what extent can you tolerate a bad neighbor? Why do neighbors consider social status as important? What should I do to change my neighbors? Do you think people you never talk to or never interact with, do you think they're bad neighbors? Let's see, what's your favorite? Show me your fingers. I like. So that's 3. Why do neighbors react in a violent way? 3. What qualities in a person make him or her a bad neighbor? I think that's the winner then. Yeah, okay, this is the winner. Neighbors. Let's combine these two. Almost the same. So what the question is, what qualities in a person make him or her a bad neighbor? And to what extent can you tolerate a bad neighbor? It's a combo question. Now, we've done that first step where you, and remember, it's really important for you to be involved, to involve your students in the question, because then they're going to be more motivated, and it's a good practice for them to compose questions. Now, before we talk in small groups, we're going to write a little bit. Just take a few minutes to organize your individual ideas on paper. All right, so actually write it down. Do the switcheroo. Oh yeah, so all of this together. And then these 3 gonna go here.
Neighbors has to care and share, but instead of that, some neighbors complain.
You remember we had the discussion Monday? What are some things we remember about that discussion that worked well, that didn't work well? If I remember correctly, we didn't monitor, the discussants did not monitor their participation. Is control your participation. But at the same time, don't be afraid to interrupt nicely. Just tap them on the shoulder and say, okay, let me speak now. It should be better because it's only 4 people. Another thing that we learned is you have to ask questions, right? Nobody asked questions last time. You have to ask the question to them, right? What else did we learn? We have to give examples, ask for clarification. And remember, last time that was very good. Nobody was the teacher. You're just friends talking, not to us, but to each other. Okay? So body language has to be attentive. We have to be respectful. But at the same time, we want it to be somewhat dynamic. Okay? Now, here, I can tell you, you have 3 men and a woman. So what do you think is going to happen? It will be dominated by the men, right? So for the men, you have to be very careful not to ignore the woman, right? Okay?
Okay, let me start the discussion. Whenever you want to.
Okay, hold on. One time.
Yeah.
So they keep track. So your name is? Kumar. Omar. Kumar. Reddy. Dr. Shobalani. Rani.
Sharma. E.V. Sharma.
Sure. Okay, let's give them a hand. Okay, begin.
Shall we start, sir?
Yes, 10 minutes.
I am going to put forth my opinions, other opinions. These opinions are debatable. This topic is about bad neighbors. How, to what extent can we bear the neighbors? First of all, I'll put forth a few opinions. Bad neighbor is the one who is unconcerned. As the best example for this is the Professor Spencer's example that was taken from somewhere in North Carolina, whose neighbors were disturbed by the cry of an infant. This is the first one. And next one is unpatriotic neighbors. They may be good neighbors. They are helpful. They will help you whenever they want. They take help from you, but they take all the secrets from your government and help the other country. They are not considered neighbors. I want your opinions. I want our honorable members to respond to this. Please.
Friend, what I believe is the modern world has lost both important qualities. It is beauty and innocence. What I meant to say is, modern world has lost the most significant aspects of living. That is beauty and innocence. And humanity is on the wane. When these things vanish from our social life, obviously, any neighbor is a bad neighbor, and everybody looks to be a bad one. So in my opinion, what I feel is, first of all, these two things are to be replaced properly. With our chaotic modern life, with the disturbance everywhere, the biggest problem of our modern life is that we have lost these two qualities, innocence and beauty, which are very prime for a happy life. So in my view, a bad neighbor is one who has lack of sociability. If sociability is lacking in one, obviously he becomes a bad neighbor. I invite my
Express opinions on what I see.
Can you tolerate a bad? So by being silent and polite, we can tolerate a bad neighbor. And instead of pointing out their negative qualities, so we have to appreciate them so that they can change their attitude.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you mean to say that forget and forgive forever?
Forgiveness is also one of the best policy to change them.
True. Their place the factor of understanding. As our friends were talking about, forget and forgive. The element of understanding plays again a vital role in becoming a good neighbor. That is also missing today. That is another problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sharma, Shobharani, Doctor, to share with you about the qualities of the bad neighbor. So, in the opinion of our group, or the collective opinion of our group, we would like to present the following qualities of a bad neighbor, or the qualities that make a man or a woman a bad neighbor. So, a bad neighbor is the one who has the quality of intolerance, stereotyped behavior, and excessive interference in our personal matters, and lack of empathy. And it may be the last but not the least, the gossiping nature of the neighbors sometimes or many times turn them into bad neighbors. So this is my opinion, or the opinion of our group. What would you like to say?
To some extent, I accept the proposals proposed by you. Do you mean to say that bad mouthing, or besmirching, bad mouthing behind you, backchatting, are impatient neighbors, impulsive neighbors? In that extent, I wholeheartedly accept with you.
Okay.
I want man to respond on this.
So, I also agree with your answer. So sometimes we should not tolerate those who will do propaganda and enjoying. And also the people who always quarrel. So that kind of mentality also. So interfering in personal affairs, that is also very. And always having domineering character. So that is, and having selfish nature. Not showing any concern. So that is, and always deceptive. So these are the things from my group.
Yes,
I understand, yeah. I understand, as she was talking about aggressiveness and all. I think I contribute this factor too. Fear, psychosis, or emotional imbalance. There is also another important factor that contributes for being a bad neighbor. This has to be checked actually. Every individual, if you want to be a good neighbor, that's the emotional balance, the state of balance in your emotions and all. That is also to be taken care of. It's aggressiveness, and also this borrowing, always borrowing and never lending and never extending a hand of help. It is also a factor that I think contributes a lot for being a bad neighbor. So there are several such things, such as factors, I think, that contribute for being a bad neighbor.
Yeah, can we think of many other things what make a person, a man or woman, a bad neighbor? Any other thing?
Yeah.
Or all these opinions can be messed up?
Possessiveness is another factor, I think.
Okay.
Possessiveness.
Yeah,
that also leads to being a bad neighbor. Possessiveness as another factor. All these, I think, emanate from psychology. So psychology, having a wonderful control over psychological aspects or psychology of the individual is another important factor to be a good neighbor.
Sorry to interrupt you. We can also pay attention to this. So we cannot always expect our neighbors to be educated people or having some psychological knowledge of psychology or whatever it is. Some people, though they are uneducated, they maintain the mental balance. And there are people, highly educated people, who lack the psychological balances. So what would be the solution to this? So how can we put it?
Yeah, your individual traits and your cultural traits and your domestic practices or your domestic etiquette are the other factors that contribute for becoming a good neighbor. If these things are disturbed or in a disturbed state, automatically they also, as you said, when illiterates are also, in some cases illiterates are very good neighbors.
Yeah.
Sociability is the factor. Probably their sociability has made them to be good.
And
ma'am, what's your opinion about this?
So even though they're illiterate, but always the truth in their mind. So their behavior is good.
Yes.
okay, this
Compared to those who live in cities, they can understand everything.
okay. This brings to me to put forth another proposal. Okay, whether it is rural or urban, it is universal topic. There are two kinds of people, they say, proactive and reactive. Reactive people are the people who respond and react to any situation, and proactive people are those who take responsibility for their actions and for that of the others. Do you think a proactive person can change his own family, unconcerned because of the circle of concern of others, and by the way change his family into a proactive one, and in the meanwhile, in the course of time, can change the mentality of the neighbors, and all the way becoming a good neighbor and getting the good neighbors? Do you think? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I do agree with you because as we have the saying, example is better than precept. True. So sometimes you see we find the people speaking of their neighbors in good terms. So they say our neighbors are, though they belong to this religion, they are very good and they are very sincere. They speak of our neighbors. So they are at the same time they say, though we don't maintain close relation with them, still we feel that they are good neighbors, just because by the way of their setting example in the mode of their life. I do completely agree with you. Yeah,
Friends,
yes.
yeah. Friends, I also understand insecurity is another biggest problem which is dogging the modern life, which is plaguing the modern life. That is also contributing for being a bad neighbor. This is a most dangerous factor actually in our modern society. As I said earlier, beauty and innocence are lost, and out of that, so many such factors have come in, so many such feelings have come in. So I think insecurity is also contributing a lot in this aspect.
How do you think security overcomes insecurity? How do you propose the solution for your problem?
Yes.
Can we expect an answer?
Yes, insecurity is a factor which makes one think that I might face some threat from the other, or I might face threat from my property or my possessions, or my bungalow or my house, or I might face some threat from the other one with regard to my privacy, my feelings of religion, feelings about God, spirituality, etc. So these are haunting a lot. These are haunting. Every individual is now haunted down by these kind of feelings. So that is the insecurity aspect. It has grown a lot.
Yeah.
With the growth of wealth in the modern world, that has also grown a lot. In fact, it should have not, but it has grown.
Okay, let's stop there. Let's give them a hand. Just some of them. There were a lot of them.
Behavior is responsible for being a bad neighbor. The sense of duty and innocence are vanishing in the present society that leads to bad neighbors. Sociability and understanding are important to be good neighbors. And by being silent and being appreciative, we can bear and change our neighbors. Intolerant, excessive interference, lack of empathy, and gossip makes bad neighbors. And social insecurities related to threat to property, threat to privacy, and religion also lead to also lead to becoming bad neighbors.
Crime, sociability, intolerance, impulsive,
Emotional imbalance, possessiveness, domination, domestic etiquette, deceptiveness, lack of empathy, forgiveness,
deceptive, bad motive.
gossip.
Yeah, that was very rich in vocabulary. I liked it. Now, what about, we heard questions, right? There were quite a few. Go ahead.
Sharma sir, what is the unpatriotic neighbor? To make a good relation.
Who is an unpatriotic?
Who is an unpatriotic?
Okay.
Who is?
Neighbor.
Okay. And what else?
Why do we give the chance to our neighbors to interfere in our personal matters? what is the psychological balance to maintain good relations?
Yeah,
Is it possible to change the minds of our neighbors?
definitely.
What are the psychosis problems among our neighbors?
There were quite a few questions, huh? I thought the questions were, did you notice? A lot of questions. Okay, thank you. Now, here's the real test, right? How many times each person spoke how long?
Sharma spoke for 2 seconds and Shovarani ma'am spoke for 4 times by taking 1 minute 45 seconds, approximately 1 or 2 seconds. And Reddy sir spoke for 5 times by taking 2 minutes 20 seconds. And last Kumar sir spoke for 7 times by taking 3 minutes 40 seconds.
It was balanced, huh?
Yeah, balance, almost all.
Balance.
Yeah.
Well, I like that you really kept inviting each other to speak.
Yeah, the dominating neighbor.
You were good neighbors.
I think I'm not a bad neighbor.
You did a good job sharing.
Dominating neighbor.
I thought that, yeah, so actually when you do the discussion circle, I think the maximum you should put is 5 people. Because if you have more than 5, it's not going to be balanced. Already I think because it was 4 people, that has a nicer balance to the story, right? So that's what's kind of neat about it. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's give him a hand. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, these discussions about neighbors. Now a segment. You're going to do the tableau, the street view. Okay, you have it?
Yeah,
what page? It's the same.
Sometimes can be, sometimes can be. Patients often give up treats, especially when they were patients. They were too happy to go to the patients back to the
Girl, the doctor, the patients need hospitals.
Yeah, group. Now, you're going to have one, so pick who's going to be the reader. And if you want to practice next door, okay, we're going to start the performance. Who's going to be when do we have lunch?
Carrying a bottle, and when you throw the
Hello.
Yeah, I'm your mother. You're my
మా ఇంటి దగ్గరకు వచ్చాను అది
మీరు రా సార్ old man enters into the garden. So right in the see అవును సార్ old man old lady is round out into the court. So she's in
ఓకే రైట్
first you entered the court. Yeah, then sit should that's nice. Then pulling my hair. Then
not తర్వాత
కొంచెం మంచిగా
మీరు ఎవరు అవసరం సార్ మీరు అవసరం నేనే వస్తాను ఇప్పుడు తర్వాత చూసుకోండి
where it was like you give him some money.
When you say fine, you will understand.
No, just paper.
To clean things.
Okay. Alright.
Clap action.
Okay, wait till everyone stops. Stop working. Go ahead.
Not just oranges, written by Isai Tobolsky. In a city, it was called. There lived a small girl of about 5. The little girl had a mother and no one else. They lived together, the two of them, not well, not badly, but a life of some hardship. The mother was a charwoman. The income was meager. Every kopeck had to be saved, but the girl was fed, dressed, and had shoes on her feet. And the mother brought a lot of different goodies from the hospital. Sometimes candy, sometimes apples. The patients often gave her treats, especially when they were being discharged. They were too happy to bother about carrying things back, and so were few and far between. Perhaps they went to other hospitals, or perhaps they were discharged less frequently.
That's the end, right? Okay, very good. For the next group, the story continues.
You can. It's mine. You can.
Please hand over hand over oranges to
Okay, ready?
But Sandy sadly needed a wonderful blue ball, which she and her mother had seen in a toy shop. She felt she simply must acquire it for a truly happy life. If you remember what it was like when you were 5, you will understand what happened when the blue ball finally turned up in the girl's hands. When the ball bounced, the little girl bounced. And even the mother gave a little bounce, because happiness makes everyone bounce a bit. But the happiness was short-lived. One day, when the little girl was playing in the courtyard, the ball bounced so fast and so high that it flew into the window of the neighbors, the Malachievs. And they had a vase of flowers on the window sill. The ball went straight into the case and threw it down, and the vase shattered into pieces.
Wow.
Almond group, that's the problem.
Almond group.
Almond now transformed into cactus.
Good. Alright, ready? Go ahead.
Flowers for life.
The old lady stormed out into the courtyard, put her hands on her hips, and announced that they had been robbed.
Madam! Madam! We have been robbed! We have been robbed! This little girl broke this expensive house! We have been robbed! We have been robbed! My God! We have been robbed! We have been robbed!
Only when the old man came out
been
did the
robbed.
old lady shut
We have been robbed!
Shut up! Soon after that, the little girl's mother returned from work. People told her everything, and she sighed and began to cry. The little girl saw her weeping mother, throwing a seat in the door, ran to her, hugged her, and on crying, began to say how sorry she was. My foolish one, was all the mother said before she took her daughter's hand. So they went hand in hand to the markers. The old lady gave her such a look that they are, said the old lady rudely, and reached out to put the little girl's plate. But she caught the old man's stern glance and drew her hands away from it quiet. We will pay for it.
I'm sorry. I pay for it.
Biting her
We will
lip.
pay for it. Don't I know you will pay? Don't worry. I will definitely
No, we will definitely pay.
Don't I know you will pay? Look at you.
The doctor said, don't I know you will pay? The old man's right. Just look at you.
That madam is old lady, and these two are those. Little girl, that Marisha. A half hour later, the old lady Marichua herself appeared at the doorstep of the culprits. Awkwardly, with both hands as if it were a watermelon, she held the ill-fated ball against her stomach. Is she asleep? She asked softly, nodding towards the bed where the little girl curled up like a bundle. Who knows? Maybe she is. She cried her heart out. The old lady angrily held out the ball. Here, and I don't want your money. Don't. She pressed her lips, looking hurt. The girl's mother began to fuss around, quickly found two huge luscious oranges, and forcibly thrust an orange into each of Marisha's hand. Marisha was turned and taken aback. After confusion and embarrassment, she began to smell the oranges one by one. But she suddenly stopped, and not saying a word, walked up to the sleeping little girl. She stood there, took a deep breath, and carefully put the oranges right next to the girl's pillow.
Reading, so sometimes the students are not looking forward to doing the text, right? So yesterday we did one with, it was a short, not just oranges. So very different text, but the strategies are flexible enough you can use them for both. So let's do the hot seat now, right? So in the hot seat, let's have the old woman and the mother. Those are, I think, the two central characters. So let's have the old woman come from, well, let's have it come from this group. Yeah, the old woman and the mother can come from here. So these two are going to prepare the statement. Remember, because there's a lot of things we don't know about the old woman and the mother. First of all, the author doesn't explain what happened to the father. Why is she alone with her daughter? How does she make ends meet? We don't know that much about the old woman. Why is she so angry? Why did she come back to try to forgive the child? You see what I mean? So these two groups going to make an opening statement. This group here, you're going to write questions for the old woman. This group here, write questions for the mother. Okay? So let's take about 5 minutes. We'll do this in 5 minutes. To help your representative prepare the opening statement, remember, just like yesterday. And then, actually, we can have a, yeah, let's just have the two characters, the old woman and the mother. Mother. Okay? So prepare the questions for the mother. So what are some questions for the old woman? Okay. When you read the story, that's the mystery of the text, is what were you thinking at the end? Right? What does that smell remind you of? Why did you give the oranges to the girl? Okay, so let us Where's the dad?
Sacrifice the life in his kids, because
okay, so let's okay, yeah. And who's gonna be the
mother of a 5-year-old girl. I'm a child woman. I work in a hospital. I look after my child alone. I collect goodies, candy, etc. to make my child happy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Malachau. We live here in this place for a long time. And now you see, recently this family has shifted here. This mother and the little girl ruined our life. Yeah, they disturbed our life. They disturbed the peace of mind. Because you see, that little girl always plays in the mud. Our mother leaves her at home and she goes for work. Then what happens one day? She brought the expensive vase in our house. It's made of crystal. Now, my outrage has no limits. So I wanted to pounce upon the little girl. But somehow or the other, I pacified myself.
Okay, thank you very much. To both of you. Let's ask questions.
12 people you yeah. When you attain age, you will experience it.
Yeah, my question to old lady.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
But actually, let's start with this group. Go ahead. Yeah.
So is it one by one or all at a time?
One by one. One from you, then one from here, one by one.
Okay, why are you so impulsive? Do you
Any children? Yes, I have children. I love my children. But I can't love the children of the child woman. No, I can't do that. Yeah, I can't love the girl or the child of the child woman. They are much below our rank, you see. Here you see, my little meaning here is not robbing off. They have broken, they have spoiled my property.
But you just now mentioned that they are below your social status. And what makes you think that they are going to rob you?
Yeah, robbing means, I use the term robbing means
Old man.
Yeah. In a sense, they are robbing me because I can never get it. Because it's an expensive one.
Okay, very
It's
good.
made of crystal.
Let's hear the question to the lady now, the mother.
This is the chow woman. Are you happy working as a chow woman?
With whatever job I have in my house.
Another question.
Are you happy with your neighbors?
No, they're not considerate towards my little girl. She is very small girl. She doesn't know the value of that vase. But they are so cruel to her. What can we do?
Are you happy as the thing turned out to be? In the end.
Yes. There is some change in the old lady's attitude. So we are optimistic.
More questions now. You can open it up. Go ahead.
So why were you smelling the oranges? And what was going on in your mind?
Yeah, you see, they are very poor. They can afford to buy oranges. They get the oranges from the hospital, which are lying there for many days. Because you see, the patients give them the oranges only when they depart from the hospital, when they are discharged from the hospital. Those oranges for lying there for many days together. I should smell them.
And I'm sorry to question you this, but don't you go to church? Don't you believe in your Bible, which says love thy neighbor?
Yes.
Don't you believe this? The neighbor doesn't mean anything class, caste, creed, or prejudiced. Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do believe. Yes, I believe in God.
Then why don't you love your neighbors?
I love my neighbor of the same rank.
You are happy to make amendments to the Bible.
Pardon?
You are happy to make amendments to the Bible.
Yes.
In your mind.
Yes. But you see,
I am happy that you are frank.
okay, thank you. But in the same Bible, people are categorized into masters and slaves.
One question to old lady.
Yes.
So the mother of the little child, she is struggling a lot to get food for both of them. She is working a lot. So she is leading her life without her husband, and she is bringing up the child. So in such a context, whenever who sees them, we want to help them. Actually, you are so rich, you can help them. You can have some empathy towards that family. And in the childhood also, you also did the same things like the little child, what she has done, now broken the window, you might have done it, and your children has done it. Old age gives us maturity, and will become mature. So then that maturity should have accepted her little work, little mischievous work, and old age has given any maturity to you, and don't have any empathy towards that.
Yeah, I do understand your question, but you see the problem is,
yes.
I cannot get it again. It's an expensive one. Even if I pay money, I cannot get it because they are not produced.
One more question. One question to old lady. Why have you changed your opinion at the end?
At the end. No, I just
What made you to leave the oranges with the girl?
Yeah, because you see, I know pretty well that they cannot buy the oranges. if I take them, they will have to wait for a long time to get the oranges. So, at last, I want to keep them for themselves.
One question to
Okay, let's ask